First, welcome to our deep dive on immigration deadlines and the hidden risks behind phrases like "leave by the 14th." In this video, we will clarify what that phrase means in practice, why it's risky to cut things close, and how to protect your travel record. We will move step by step, using clear examples and diagrams, so you finish with a concrete plan you can use. Next, here is our agenda. First, we will define what "by the 14th" actually means in an immigration context. Then, we will explain why cutting it close is risky. After that, we will outline the consequences of overstaying, even briefly. We will then walk through a practical buffer day strategy. Following that, we will cover what to do in a genuine emergency. Finally, we will test your understanding with quick quizzes and tie it all together with key takeaways. Moving forward, it is essential to recognize that immigration control is time-sensitive and rule-bound. Even small delays can flip your status from compliant to overstayer, with consequences that may affect future travel. That is why we must define the deadline precisely and plan conservatively. Before we continue, please note this important disclaimer. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Immigration rules, interpretations, and enforcement practices differ by country and can change without notice. You should always verify your situation with official sources or a qualified professional in the applicable jurisdiction. Now let's define the phrase precisely. In most government and immigration contexts, "by the 14th" means you are allowed to depart at any time up to 11:59 p.m. on the 14th. Once the time hits 0000 on the 15th, your permitted stay ends. Critically, border processing relies on exact times. If your exit is recorded even seconds after midnight, you are considered an overstayer. This interpretation is common in official documents and systems. Therefore, while the window appears to include the full 14th, relying on the very end of that day is inherently risky. Furthermore, this flowchart illustrates the decision point, departing on the 13th versus the 14th. If you choose the 13th, you create a comfortable buffer, drastically reducing risk and leading to a compliant exit. If you choose the 14th, you face a tight timeline. Any disruptions, such as traffic jams, long security lines, airline delays, or check-in issues, can push you closer to midnight. When that happens, exit processing may spill into the next day. The outcome is a heightened risk of overstay and resulting penalties. The diagram emphasizes that the safer path is to depart on the 13th. Next, we need to confront the consequences. Overstaying, even briefly and unintentionally, can result in fines, removal actions, and multi-year bans on re-entry. Your future travel can become much more difficult, potentially eliminating visa waiver eligibility and mandating longer, more complex visa applications. These outcomes can arise even when the overstay was brief. Therefore, prevention is far better than seeking leniency afterward. Consequently, this sequence diagram shows how your departure day unfolds across multiple checkpoints. You leave your hotel, encounter possible traffic delays, proceed to airline check-in, pass through security, and finally reach border control for exit processing. The system clock timestamps your exit. In the on-time scenario, your exit is recorded on the 14th at an evening hour, and you remain compliant. In the delay scenario, cumulative waits push your processing past midnight, and the system records your exit on the 15th, making you an overstayer. This illustrates how small delays can add up to a critical threshold. Now, let's translate this into a practical plan. First, if your document says, "by the 14th," schedule your departure for the 13th. Second, try to obtain your exit stamp well before evening on this buffer day. Third, select earlier departures rather than the last flight or train of the day. Fourth, prepare backups, alternative routes, additional transit time, and an earlier arrival at the airport or border. Fifth, keep all required documents easily available, including your passport, proof of status, itinerary, and important contact numbers. Sixth, monitor live conditions such as traffic, labor actions, weather, and airline alerts so you can adjust proactively. Additionally, if a true emergency occurs, such as hospitalization, immediately contact the relevant immigration authority before your permitted stay ends. Provide supporting documentation, for example, hospital admission notes, a police report, or airline cancellation notices. Request written instructions or a formal extension, and then follow those directions exactly. Retain all communications and evidence, because you may need them for future applications or explanations. Moreover, this table summarizes scenarios. Departing on the 13th at 1400 is compliant with a large buffer and minimal risk. Departing on the 14th at 10 o'clock can be compliant if everything runs smoothly. But there is still vulnerability to unexpected disruptions. Departing on the 14th at 22:30 is borderline, because even minor delays can push the exit past midnight. Departing at 0:01 on the 15th is an overstay and is recorded as a status violation. In comparison, leaving on the 13th provides a substantial time buffer, reduces stress, absorbs routine delays, and strongly supports compliance. By contrast, leaving on the 14th compresses your timeline, increases stress, leaves little room for disruptions, and raises the risk of overstaying. The comparison highlights the prudence of choosing the earlier date when possible. Now for a quick quiz. The question is, if your document says leave by the 14th, when does an overstay begin? Option A, at 23:59 on the 14th. Option B, at 00:00 on the 15th. Option C, at noon on the 14th. Option D, only if you miss your flight on the 14th. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. Moving on, the correct answer is 00:00 on the 15th. Overstay officially begins at the moment the date changes, because border systems record precise times. Therefore, relying on the final seconds of the 14th is risky. Next quiz. The question is, what is the safest plan if your deadline is by the 14th? Option A, leave on the 14th at 23:30 if traffic looks okay. Option B, leave on the 14th in the afternoon with fingers crossed. Option C, leave on the 13th with a comfortable buffer. Option D, wait to see if your flight is delayed before deciding. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. Accordingly, the safest plan is to leave on the 13th with a comfortable buffer. This approach absorbs unexpected delays and significantly reduces the likelihood of any overstay. To reinforce the key ideas, here is a concise toolkit. The rule of thumb is to plan to leave a day early. Your buffer plan is to book earlier departures, arrive early, and prepare backups. A practical tip is to aim to clear border control well before evening on your buffer day. Finally, keep a simple checklist of vital items: passport, proof of status, itinerary, and contact numbers. Continuing, this planning timeline outlines best practices leading up to your trip. 2 weeks before travel, start researching requirements. 10 days out, secure bookings. A week out, confirm documents. 3 days prior, check advisories and operational updates. The day before, pack and recheck timing. On the 13th, depart early. The 14th becomes a spare buffer rather than a required travel day. The 15th is a clear boundary. Exiting then would be recorded as an overstay. Finally, this pie chart visualizes the relative risk. The largest portion represents on-time outcomes when using a buffer day. A smaller slice shows minor delays that are easily absorbed by the buffer. The smallest slice illustrates overstay risk that becomes more prominent when travelers cut it close without a buffer. The chart underscores that buffer days substantially reduce exposure to adverse outcomes. In summary, remember these key points. First, by the 14th means you must exit before midnight leading into the 15th. Second, border control is strict and relies on exact timestamps. Third, avoid the edge by planning a full buffer day. Fourth, for true emergencies, contact the authorities immediately and document everything thoroughly. To conclude, define your deadline precisely and plan conservatively. Use a buffer day to absorb delays and reduce stress. If unavoidable events interfere, notify authorities before the deadline and keep written records. Above all, protect your travel future by prioritizing compliance over convenience. As a final note, apply these principles consistently for all time-sensitive immigration situations. Before we sign off, if you found this useful, please like, share, and subscribe for more practical travel guidance. Then, join the conversation in the comments and tell us your buffer day strategy or any lessons you have learned from tight deadlines. Your insights can help other travelers too.